Hi, good afternoon. This is Dante Ang, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Manila Times. Welcome to the Manila Times Roundtable interview. This afternoon, we're fortunate to have the former governor of Guam, the Honorable Carl T.C. Gutierrez.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
He's here with a delegation. Mr. Richard Arroyo, who's with the Lieutenant Governor's office. Right, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And Ms. Fe Valencia Ovalles, who is representing the medical sector of the delegation, I suppose. Yes?
Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you for having us.
Thank you. From the Manila Times side, we have Ms. Neri Tenorio, our publisher editor, and Tessa Mauricio Ariola, who is our lifestyle editor, but has been to Guam a few times, so we consider her our expert on Guam. So, Governor, thank you for giving us time. You come at with a very interesting mission to the Philippines.
Absolutely.
Which is to make your territory a visa-free entry for territory for Filipinos.
Filipinos to come to Guam.
What could you explain to us what the rationale for this is, and how far along are you in this process?
Well, you know, Congress of the United States passed a law about 30-some years ago that allowed the neighboring countries of Guam a visa entry free into Guam to spur our tourism economy. It included like Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, Korea, but they left out the Philippines. I think at that particular time, the dynamics then is that the standard of living was quite low, and they're afraid about the overstay. The many TNTs that will be ending up there,
Right, overwhelm
the small territory.
Yes.
So they've left it out, left the Philippines out. Well, the dynamic has changed now. From the way I understand it, it's like 38 to 40% of the Makati, Metro Manila area are in the middle income area, and these people are not going to be coming to Guam and be a burden in Guam. They can become tourists and be able to go back home when they're done and not be overstaying. And so the mission that the governor of Guam, Luliang Guerrero, and the Lieutenant Governor, Josh Tenorio, has this very high in the radar, because they think that the opportunity is here now for Filipinos to fly to Guam, get on a plane, up to 90 days, stay in Guam, much like the other countries around us, and enjoy meeting their families and their friends there. So,
Or just to visit?
just to visit, yes, and buy U.S. goods stuff. You have the Kmart and the Ross, Dress for Less, whatever they have there, because that's where the Filipinos go.
Right.
And it surprised me. I got my godson there last 2 months ago, and every day for 3 days they keep going back to Ross.
Yes.
I said, what?
I understand him perfectly.
But that's so the issue here is that we
Always a
have met
destination
and had a delegation a couple months ago, met with the executive secretary, media there,
Philippines.
and Philippine Executive Secretary, and he loved the idea that I brought to him about the visa waiver for Filipinos, because when President Duterte was speaking on TV, I heard him say that in a jestful way and jokingly asking the United States, give us visa waiver because we allow your people to come here to the Philippines visa free, right?
Reciprocity, yeah.
So when I threw out the idea to the executive secretary that we may not ever see that happening in the very near future, but asking for Guam only, because Guam is an enclave, it's an island that as a tourist, if you don't have a U.S. visa, you can't get beyond Guam to the United States.
Right.
And then let's do that first. And he loved the idea, and that he would have told us that he would appoint a high-level person to collaborate with our government, our governor, and go to the United States, go see Trump, and say, Trump, this is give us this one, and we won't bother you anymore. And with the new dynamics, like I said, where they overstay, even on H2 and 1 and H2B visa, the Filipinos are only overstaying on 3%, while the United States is 40%.
Yes.
That's why they were taking off the countries that are allowed H2s to come into the United States. And I think that's primarily because of human trafficking that they have in the United States.
Sure.
But with Guam, we are unique, and that we were a province of Manila back in the Spanish times.
Right.
And my great-grandfather was born in Binondo, Manila, and he came to Guam and had my grandfather there. And so the opportunity is there. We're really just one family. At one time, there were more Filipinos in our islands than there were local Chamorros.
That's really good news. And
So-
if we cannot say right now, when is it going to happen? When can it be a law? Maybe you could tell us at what stage is the plan right now, and what do you expect to accomplish within the next
Is
few
there a
months?
law that needs to be done,
There
or
is
just,
an existing law, and you can add or subtract from that list. As a matter of fact, when I was governor, and Burma was on that list, but then Burma got the idea that they were running away when there was a military government. They were coming to Guam, and then they overwhelmed our islands, and we were putting them in our lockup, because they were overstays. And so then I requested the U.S. State Department to remove them, and they did remove them.
I see.
So adding the Philippines in there would be just a process of convincing the President of the United States to tell the State Department, add the Philippines
To
in the
that
visa
list.
waiver for Guam, and let's monitor it. I expect us to see at least 100,000 the first year coming from the Philippines to Guam,
Wow.
in that visa waiver, and then of course Philippine Airlines, Cebu Pacific,
Yeah.
they'll start filling up their planes and adding more flights to Guam, and competition is there.
Right.
And there are other things that we could do in our relationship with economic development
Right.
and training. And there's a training that now we're looking at coming to the Philippines and be trained in allied health and be U.S. certified. And that's what Ms. Faye Ovalis is here.
Yes.
And also she's with the Guam Economic Development Authority Board of Directors.
Okay.
Okay.
So she's traveling with us on that basis. And so the stage is Manila Times helping us to collaborate, getting the word out nationally. The U.S. Embassy will pick up this story that maybe the Filipinos do want. And there's an opportunity to do it. So this is an opportunity for us to get in front of the Filipino people, and hopefully that we can get covered very well, and that people will realize that it's not a hard thing to do.
Just
Sure.
one point to clarify. This is for tourism purposes and not for employment purposes.
It's not for employment. The employment purposes, it's called, the program is H2A, H2B, in agriculture and in construction. We have them there now.
Right.
But recently, in last January, they banned the Philippines to be included. So we're here fighting for that too, as well with the Malacanang people. They're helping us with that. And so far, we're making headway because they've gone outside of that and are approving more people now to come in from the Philippines, despite the ban.
Well, Tessa, you've been to Guam before for vacation, if I remember correctly.
Yes. I actually stayed for 10 days,
Wow.
believe it or not. We just kind of wanted to have a feel
A
of,
family holiday.
of the island. But I think, well, we've also worked with the Guam Tourism Bureau through Cebu Pacific several times. They've invited members of our staff to actually go there and write about tourism.
Yes.
But I would, if I remember the stories that we wrote, it's basically also the culture of the Guamanians that sort of was highlighted in that. But I think what might attract Filipinos to enter Guam visa-free is the fact that they could have a taste of America. So my question, I guess, is, because we've written about Guamanian food, all the meats, and then all of, Tumon, the story of the love, these
To Lover's Point.
to Lover's Point and all that, and it's mostly about the Guamanian culture. My question is, how would you entice Filipinos also on your end to go to Guam
Guam.
for a taste of the United States?
Well, like you said, the Cebu Pacific or Philippine Airlines, they have promos as well. But the fact is that we're not unknown to the Filipino people.
Yes.
Sure.
And that our food are pretty much in the same category with, we just add a little bit more spice maybe than they do here. But it's there, and they know about it. It's just that they can't get there.
Alright.
Yes,
They just
because-
can't get on a plane. But
Right.
can you imagine just to going down and buying a ticket and getting on a plane
Right.
and being able to stay, like you said, up to 90 days there as a visa waiver? You can, you don't have to just act like a tourist, but you can do something what you can in
Sure.
90 days. But it's there. People know about it.
Yes.
And that there will be, believe me, the Guam Visitors Bureau will be coming forth with more advertisement on how to get that word out. Come to Guam, taste the different kind of Filipino food.
But I guess my question is, you know, with obviously with people just reading the news and seeing that, of course, President Trump has tightened immigration. You know, he would like to tighten immigration laws and all that. People might wonder in the Philippines, how could this happen if the president's you know, leaning towards people, you know, foreigners going into America a bit. You know, he's not very open to that. I mean, how can we convince him? And first of all, how can you tell whoever needs to be told what the Filipinos can bring to Guam as tourists? I mean, how great a market are we?
Well, you know that in spite of all those potential obstacles, they have allowed Russia to come in, so they're there. But the one thing that makes it easy for them to comprehend is that, like I said, Guam is an island, it's an enclave, you just can't get beyond there. So, and it's easy to police, easy, as a matter of fact, when I was dealing with it when I was governor, is that we promised that any overstays, we would not burden the federal U.S. government to go look for them, that we will use our local forces, the police, the customs, the immigration people, and go look for them and spend our resources to find those overstays. So those things are like, it makes sense. Why you don't worry about the human trafficking that's been going through Mexico. There are some Filipinos coming through Mexico that got caught on, and from all over the world, they're using that route.
Yes.
But in Guam, you just cannot do it.
'cause it's an
You're
island.
locked in, and that we can find you. Believe me, maybe we'll find you in the cockfight somewhere, and we'll take you.
Governor, is this a larger part? Is this move part of a larger strategy of Guam to make it more tourist friendly, or are you focusing on the Philippines? Are you looking at the Philippines and other countries to relax some of these visa requirements?
Well, the other countries we're really looking at is Vietnam, and maybe Thailand. But the key is that the Philippines right now, with the standard of living, when they come there, they actually spend thousands of dollars. They have money. They have more than we have, and so we see this.
Tessa spent
Especially
half of that. I think.
But it's there, you know, and the hotels, there are new hotels that are being planned right now, and the tourists that are coming in from the other areas like China, you know, and some in Korea, they got the low-cost airlines as well, but they don't spend as much, you know. So the Filipinos that are going to come to Guam, probably the ones that can afford to buy a ticket and be able to spend some money in the United States.
And tax-free shopping.
Tax-free.
Tax-free
That's
shopping.
Yeah.
So,
So that's our goal
Key,
here,
yeah.
and the Filipinos, believe me, it just makes more sense now that if they do this, not only diplomatically, I think that the President Trump is going to say, okay, Mr. Government President Duterte, let's try this, and then he's won one, you know, and it makes it easier now to deal with the Spratly Islands and the other places, you know, to get the United States now a little bit more looked upon positively by the
Kindly,
Philippines,
yes.
because they have been on the periphery over the last several decades.
Well, I wanted you to expound that on a bit, because if this is part of an overall strategy to make Guam more tourist friendly, I mean, China alone has, I think, if memory serves, about 150 million outbound tourists a year. I mean, you can get all the tourists you want from China, but I guess I can see how the Philippines, given our history, given the growing Filipino community also in Guam, makes much more sense to court as a new market. Is that your thinking as well?
That's my thinking as well. And you know, whether China is allowed in and how many people can come into Guam from China, it's a nightmare, because they're completely monitored all the time. I mean, you just don't, you know, they're not like the Philippines, where the Filipinos are not in the category of China, where every time I'm going to go to China, I have to be briefed and debriefed by Homeland Security, the NSA, and the CIA, because they're always worried about everybody trying to steal something from you, or you know. But with the Philippines, it's just not the kind of tourists we're expecting to come to be monitored. But Korea has been providing us a lot of the tourists right now numbers, but the spending is
Korea.
that's not there. Korea, Japan has dwindled. There
Right.
used to be 85% from Japan, but now it has dwindled.
Well, it's interesting because part of the news this morning was that the U.S. Embassy, I suppose referring to those going to the mainland, are going to be put through some additional security procedures.
Yes.
And, well, I think the the Philippine Embassy and other embassies in the world will start looking at applicants' social media accounts and other footprint, their footprint on the internet, I suppose to see or to prevent any terrorists going to the United States. But here you are. You're saying that you're open doors. That
We're
seems-
open doors,
That's,
yeah.
that's a little bit of an opposite policy that we're hearing from the State Department this morning.
Yeah, well, but they do that. I don't know for what political strategy they're saying that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just make it a little bit hard to make it look like it's part of a strategy. That's how Trump is too.
Yeah.
He knows how to make it to do the art of the deal. Scare
Yeah.
everybody and that
Yeah.
you guys give in now a little bit more. So I don't buy that. I
Right.
don't buy that. I just believe that although they're worried about the footprint and the pivot into the Pacific right now, that we really matter that much, except that it's easy to monitor in Guam. We have
Right.
the bases there that are easily protected, and the force protection is very, very easy to maintain in Guam. So I think it's a strategy on their part to be able to continue to scare us into thinking that there's these people coming in.
Is this visa-free entry plan for Filipinos to Guam? Do you expect that this would also help boost your economy?
Absolutely.
But Filipinos are not really that big a market.
Well, they're saying they
right
spend
now.
thousands of.
What was that, a joke or?
No,
they really do.
no,
Really
no,
expect to
absolutely
attract
not. Ask her how much is
I know, but there are not very many
She
tests.
wouldn't want to confess.
There are not.
Otherwise, I want to start reviewing.
No, I only say this because I was the last time I was there. I rented a car and the driver was actually Filipino and actually talked to me about Filipinos actually buying
Stuff.
hordes of
Yes.
bags
Really, huh?
and bringing home boxes.
Is
Yes.
that for business or for their
For their
personal consumption?
Consumption. I mean, a lot, and
Oh,
she actually
okay.
named some names that you probably would also read in society pages, and because it's the closest. I mean, it's a very short flight compared
3
to going
hours.
all the way to the United States, and you actually get. Tax-free shopping is a major difference. I mean, if you shop in America and you have an
Yeah.
8% tax
Or more.
or more,
Or more,
9,
yeah.
8 or 9,
Yeah.
then to be able to shop for the same things
Okay.
there.
Granting the Filipino is an untapped large
Yes.
market for you. Could you tell us a little bit about the growth of your economy right now? What is its state right now? And how do you expect to boost that with this new program?
Well, Guam's economy is bolstered by military and tourism. And our land resources are limited, our water resources are limited. But we know that if we don't do something that's within our control, which is tourism, we can't control the military, although there's going to be a major movement coming out to
Sure.
Guam from the Marines and from Okinawa.
Yeah.
But the tourism is where we can have some control.
Some
That's
growth.
how we can really monitor and we can grow. And we still have a lot of land, especially in agriculture. We're trying to do even in aquaculture and even mariculture. There are people in Iceland looking at Guam now to do the cold water raising of fish like salmon and seawater trout. So the Filipinos are the experts in that. Although growing vegetables and stuff like that is sort of risky because of we're the exporters of typhoons to the Philippines. So we cannot really have crop insurance like that. That's inexpensive. But the Filipinos, the market is the distance as well. 3 hours away. 3 hours away. Jump on a plane and you're there in 3 hours.
Right. Why is this important to the incumbent governor? I mean, I have to ask: is this a political issue as well? I mean, is that Is that an angle here, or I'm just
Well,
I'm just being the skeptical journalist
No,
here?
you're absolutely correct. But it's been being pushed for the last since I was in
Many, many years.
in politics
It's
for over
not new.
40 some years. I've been pushing for it, even when the Filipino votes were only 15 to 18%. We were
Right.
pushing for it because it's a close knit community. It's like a family. So
Right.
everybody's trying to make sure that we treat each other the same. Now that it's 40 years later,
Right.
the Filipino votes are only 2% below the local voters. So
I
can
see.
you imagine the size of that? And that's part of platforms offered to when we go out there campaigning.
Right.
So we can imagine the pressure you've been getting from the Filipino community in Guam.
Well, they were giving up hope already until now. Now
Right.
they see
We're
that
talking
the
about it
entry
again,
into
yeah.
Malacanang, seeing the executive secretary,
Right.
give them hope because it's just makes sense.
Right.
And so this today is going to be a catapult, hopefully, for the issue to be brought into the international scene, where the U.S. Embassy that continuously monitor what's going on in the country will be sending this back to the Philippines, to the United States, and hopefully Trump will and the State Department will get wind of it, and that let them study the issue again at that level, so that don't just keep pushing us aside and say that it doesn't matter because we're so minuscule.
Right.
And so this today, I think, is part of the strategy that the governor wanted me to continue to push here. And although I think the executive secretaries, they're out of the country, but we have been working with Secretary Nick Acosta, who is our intermediary.
Okay.
And he's like in charge of all Filipinos Overseas Commission. He's the secretary. So he's the one that opens the door for us into Malacanang. And he comes to Guam a lot. And so from that point, I think that it's getting that close. And I think, I keep saying, I don't know, I'm not putting the burden on you, but
Sure.
this is it.
Well,
Right.
maybe we can ask Ms. Faye Ovales here to talk more about the economic development program in Guam and how how Filipinos are contributing to that. We understand there's about a third of the population of Guam
40% basically. Yeah.
now 40%
Yes, yes,
are
of the population,
Filipinos.
right.
So how are Filipinos contributing to that growth in economy?
The
and-
ones that have been there, like me, for 45 years, have actually seen the growth of the contribution of our kababayan. The major thing, I think, is the governor is right, because opening up the door again on the visa waiver program would really bring about the Filipinos that wanted to come there for like an R&R for business sake or for other matters that they would like to do. There's so much exchanges that we can do out of this thing, right? And opening up, because it's a hassle, whether we like it or not. You go in there, whether you are with someone with some kind of like resources, you go there. I mean, you don't get a 90-day visa or a 10-year visa right away. There's so much scrutiny, right? So this would pave the way in bringing about like you going not anymore pipila ka sa embassy.
Yes, and
you will line up there, wait for hours, take a number,
Yeah.
but this is what the governor was saying. The dynamics have changed. We have more people in the Philippines that can afford this kind of getaway.
Right.
Maybe can also afford to look at what the business side. Look at Jollibee. Jollibee is thriving so well in Guam. You know that up to this day there are still lines? Lines of people that wanted to have a taste of Jollibee.
Are they all Filipinos lining up,
Oh,
or
no,
are there
mixed.
locals?
If
They're
the local
mainstream.
people come to Guam, they have the taste of the palabok, they have the taste of, so they're following Jollibee. Pagdating sa Pilipinas, sa Guam, they were just there. Imagine Jollibee open up as early as 2 a.m. People were already queuing up.
Right.
And it never stopped.
And there's an SM.
Yes,
There's an
there's an
SM.
SM.
Ito, that
also.
pinupuntahan ko
Yes,
rin. But
yes.
what I'm saying on the Filipinos coming to Guam, ako as a Filipina, I'm very proud. And I'm really one of those that I'm with the governor. This has been I think the desire of our kababayan to make sure that this opens up. It's even more, the time is good now. Because there are a lot more Filipinos that can really do this, right? That I have friends that will say, punta lang ako sa naturalizer, bibili lang ako sa dosenang sapatos. I'll just buy a dozen of shoes and pack those whole things and back to Guam with all the naturalizer. That kind of Filipinos, right? And then the governor is more on like the It's sort of like the family visiting family. It's always been us. Yan ang costumbre natin eh.
Right.
Whether you like, the Filipinos will always happen and try to find their relatives, right?
Right.
And then
Right.
and making that, especially families have been separated for years for whatever jobs or what have you, right? It's so hard now, but this is close now. This is close to reality. I think between President Trump and President Duterte, as they need each other for security reason, this is a good dialogue to happen now.
True.
Di ba? Quid pro quo na yan ngayon eh.
Right, but going back to Neri's question, of course, when you visit there as a tourist, you can't help but see the opportunities. But what opportunities, what sectors do you think are ripe for further exploration from the Filipino vantage point? What is Guam? For someone who's not been to Guam, what industries do you think are
Offer business
are
investment.
business
To come in,
opportunities?
to come in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to come in
we-
because not everybody's Jollibee,
Yeah.
not everybody's an SM.
But remember-
what opportunities?
For
Because my
investment.
impression as an outsider is, of course, there's trade,
Marami
there's
pa, yeah.
community, but maybe what other opportunities do you think
A 99
should be in the priority when you're pushing
99%
Guam?
kasi ng
Yeah.
aming mga kinakain, everything that we use is imported.
Okay.
So what if opens
Food.
up? Yeah, marami. Food. Lahat ini-import namin eh.
All right.
This is why the government is saying tourism and military is really our main
Your bread and butter.
bread and
yeah.
butter. So we bring in like people from different areas, like manufacturers here that can bring in certain things, goods and products in the Philippines as they exchange, as they get clear with whatever requirement it is with customs and whatever it is, what is required for them to come in. Those are things. It might be small things, right? But the population could actually support it eh. Doon ako that's where I'm coming from. A small thing like bagoong lang eh.
Yeah.
The market of that sort, you will look at the small small contagious lang ng Filipino, but the use is like between the locals and the Filipinos now. They're using a lot of our Philippine products, right? Marami. I could tell you a lot that could do
So,
just
okay,
on the food
one-
industry alone, right?
One industry or one business a Filipino businessman could set up in Guam is like this little variety sari-sari store for Filipinos. But what about for the locals? What about them? How do we cater to them if we are
The
for
mainstream-
instance, yeah,
The mainstream
the
marketing.
big business plan, for
What
example,
opportunities
what
are there?
opportunities do we have to invest in?
Well, go.
Well, I was telling you about our invitation to dinner last night by Mr. C, and he's been to Guam. He's already in there looking at building up to 488 two-bedroom homes around the golf course. They already started the first 8
Wow.
units going on. So there's properties around there that could be developed.
okay.
There's mining that you could do for the coral, for the base of construction. We're looking for somebody like that with enough resources that know how to come in. We're looking at someone that also maybe has the technology in pyrolysis, where there's the going thing right now to be able to reduce the trash
recycling,
on a
yeah.
small island like that without polluting sending out the particulates in the air to pollute
Right.
the area. Those are requiring huge sums of investment.
Investments, yeah.
And so they're looking at it, and there's a lot of land area that's undeveloped, and they're looking at to reviving the shrimp farm, the bangus farm, the ito farm, because they kind of got wiped out before from the typhoon. But they're there, and the expertise and the money for investment into that is available. So all they have to do is maybe jump on as a tourist, come there and scout around the island
Right.
and guarantee
Identify.
Bring the technology.
the
Something that you-
ingenuity of the Filipino. They're going to come up with some idea. This man, Mr. C. Dio, he's already seen it, and he's coming back out on the 17th to look at what his project is doing. 488 homes.
And you
know.
mentioned that Mega World is Resort. The
Resort
World
World,
is
Resort World, we're going
is
to be
looking
meeting
at
with them.
opportunities there as well.
And a small, the governor wants also a small cruise ship, and they're like maybe 800 passenger. So I believe in the next 3 months, they're going to try to take one out and take a look around, go around the Marianas, and then come back here.
Like a
So they're
luxury ship.
Yeah.
They're already exploring that possibility. They're even exploring outside, and Guam, 3 miles belongs to the territory and the control of Guam. after 12 miles, it's international waters.
Yeah.
And they're looking at bringing a gambling ship outside at the 12-mile limit.
I see.
And even try to get helicopter people in and do those things and transport people. But they're looking at the possibility of having an area in Guam, in the United States called Guam,
Right.
that they can avail themselves to. Because a lot of people want to come and gamble, not in Las Vegas, but maybe right 3 hours
Outside.
away.
Sure.
So Resorts World is going to explore those possibilities. They have been exploring. They have met with our governor, but they want to meet more to sort of have the economic development group try to usher it across.
Mr. Arroyo, why is this important to the Lieutenant Governor? What's the stake here for your boss?
Well, I don't believe it just in him per se, but I think the whole administration as well
Right.
will be hoping for, for this.
So the whole
movement.
team is
The whole team
is behind
It's
this
not just
initiative.
one person.
Right.
I just happen to work under the
Right.
Deputy Chief of Staff, John
Right.
Cabo,
Right.
and was also is under the Lieutenant Governor's side of the office and stuff. So I believe it's a whole team, Dante, that really feel that this would be good for Guam, economically and also entertainment-wise, because as the governor is saying about Resorts World, this year we are celebrating our 75th
Oh, yes.
liberation for Guam, the peace and friendship, which we've come a long way, and I'm sure he can tell me because he's lived through the survival in war and all the atrocities that have happened. So with this, we're also having Resorts World come in and do a concert for Guam, and we have 60 days of entertainment. Our liberation's on July 21st, so it starts July 9th. So this is one thing that also we're getting the Filipinos involved. As me also being a Ilocano and my grandfather being from Zambales, I believe San Narciso is where he's from, but
San
hopefully,
Narciso.
maybe I'll be corrected later when I get home. But yeah, so that I've never been. I want to go and explore my roots, and so I'm very curious. And my grandfather was an incredible man, and he lived till he was 100. The wife lived till he was 103, so I'll be around for a while.
And he's also a drummer. He played with who?
I'm also an entertainer too in Guam, but if you want to do something, yes, I play with like Lonnie Masalucha, Pops
Great.
Fernandez,
Oh.
Martin Rivera.
What
Yeah.
instrument?
I'm the
do you-
drummer.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, I'm drummer. So
Cool.
and when they come out, we
Crowds.
have a place called the University Cabo Fieldhouse, which seats about maybe 4,000.
Feels
Packed
like
house.
feels
I mean,
packed,
they
yeah.
even have to call the fire department to make sure they exit. So when these artists come out, the place is filled. They had basketball tournaments back in the early '90s, mid '90s. That when they come out and do an Asia tournament featuring the PBA versus Guam or around the region,
Packed.
I'm talking about thousands of people. People that are spectators. So this is where that free visa waiver program for Guam, I think, will really come into play, and we really that's another opportunity.
All right.
We've already
Changes.
adopted my friend's team, the Blackwater. Dioseldo C. He owns the
team,
Eva
the
Belena.
NBA team, the
Yeah,
team.
but
Oh,
then
yes,
Blackwater,
yeah.
the
Blackwater.
scent.
So
It's the scent.
we had dinner with them last night after the game. We won by 9 points or 8.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that's our team, and we're looking also to let them know. And as a matter of fact, I was interviewed when Magnolia and Rain or Shine was playing at the Mall of Asia. Halftime, I was interviewed, bringing the same subject to them, that because they had a hard time coming to Guam, because they come to Guam and play there. But because of the,
Yes.
the embassy problem, they said they didn't let 3 people in.
I
So
see.
I said the visa waiver
It's
will be
gonna
having
solve
the
it all.
PBA coming to Guam, playing there, and the Filipinos would
Yes.
love that. Believe me,
Right.
that's sports as well. That they can just go back and forth, even in Little League, Babe Ruth League, any kind of the young leagues, the people will go back and forth without hassle of being turned down, or one member being
Yeah.
turned down, and
Yes.
then you don't have a complete team.
Right.
It's just surprising sometimes when you think about the economic status of the Philippines, saying that the poverty line is still significant in this country, and yet Filipinos are so willing to spend so much to watch these concerts, watch these basketball leagues.
And that's what you were saying.
Yeah, I was
And
at
the-
Antipolo last night. We watched there, and it's and like I said, that's our team. Blackwater, ever
Blackwater,
Belena,
yeah.
Blackwater. And they won.
Yeah.
So now I think they're in first place right now.
So what do you think is the biggest challenge right now for this visa-free entry program?
It's just
what could
getting the
stop
issue
it?
to the highest level of
Get it-
our
get it
government, the
really
United
up to
States
the
government.
presidential level.
Getting a collaboration with the
Yes.
Philippine government, Duterte, and bring it.
Top level.
And then when they appoint that, I send out a letter to the executive secretary. I'm waiting for the response on who he appointed to collaborate with us to go to Washington and see the State Department or Trump himself. And hopefully our governor, Lou Leon can go with President Duterte there to bring that issue there, because they're not unaware of it. And,
Right.
and bringing it to this heightened state in your national paper, I'm sure the U.S. Embassy is going to take note and bring the issue even further, so there won't be surprise when we're making that knock on the door in Washington, D.C.
Would you go to the extent of inviting our president over to Guam to see the
we-
place for himself and
Yes.
appreciate the issue even more?
As a matter of fact, in Davao, one of my employees lived next door to him. And so
Okay.
when our governor and lieutenant governor won in November, they wanted to come and visit the president. So the Perea family set up a meeting with the president so that we can invite him to come to Guam. Unfortunately, every time he's open,
Right.
the governor has to go back to Washington, so we keep missing that.
Right.
So soon, the governor, we're going to set up a meeting with the president through the executive secretary and Mr. Acosta, Secretary Acosta, to meet with, so that she can invite him to come to Guam and then plan the plan of action to get the visa waiver and go to Washington together.
Governor, I think you need to educate us a little bit here, because if I remember correctly, you need to explain to us the political dynamics here. Your incumbent governor is a Democrat, is that correct?
She's a Democrat. yes.
Democrat, and given now the acrimonious relationship, at least from what we see on CNN, I mean, how is that going to go?
Well, because we don't want CNN
Right.
anymore.
How's that going to go down?
Lost our CNN, man. I tell you.
How's that going to go down? You know,
You just
what's your
talk in
strategy to
Tagalog.
make
He speaks Tagalog.
the Trump Republican
He says
administration
wala.
to listen?
He's very good
In
at
the last
it.
election, 2016, you see, I'm very close relationship with the Clintons. I
Okay.
brought him to Guam when I was governor.
Maybe that's not the right thing to say right now.
No, no,
Because
no,
Trump
but-
may be listening. Yeah.
But they
He's gonna
just
tweet on you
the
tonight.
National Democratic Party, and I say it publicly, they went crazy. They're absolutely nuts. So I'm a Democrat in Guam. We're affiliated with the National Party. But this group of people they went off the edge on the left side. So I supported Trump. I would publicly say that Trump, as a matter of fact, I won some money in his last election. People couldn't believe it.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's a man that gets things done.
Done, yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm comparing myself with him, but we're results oriented, and we figure out how to get there, and not worry about all the side distractions. And that's what was needed. I think he was God sent to go into that office in the United States and clean up the way the United States has been acting recently over the last decade on trying to get a global government, a one world government, which is kind of nuts. And so Trump was needed to be put there, and I support that. And he's a results-oriented person. If it makes sense, he will act on it.
I think you need to slow down a bit, because if Trump realizes that you are a Democrat, a friendly Democrat, he might just call you up for another duty that will keep you from this campaign to give a U.S. visa-free entry to Filipinos.
No. That's one of the conditions if I'm going to do that. Give the visa waiver first. But I will publicly, I state that publicly, that Trump is what the United States needs now, what it needs over the next 5 years, again, 6 years, get him reelected, because he's going to straighten out this whole mess in the world right now. And people think that because he's bustos, the way he talks publicly and all that thing, that he's nuts. He's not. He's smarter than any of us. That man really knows how. He didn't get there because he had a lot of failures on the way up, but he knows how to get to the top and make things happen. So, as a Democrat, like I said, the Clintons were very close to our relationship, but they've gone overboard.
Yeah.
I mean, they've gone so far left that they're off the page.
Right. So,
Sorry.
what's the process? I mean, I think Nary was asking earlier. So there is a law
Yeah.
that exists that allows the Philippines to be included on the list
To
for
other countries.
of other countries already allowed U.S. Visa-free entry to Guam. So who are you actually going to lobby to? Is it the State Department? Is it the Bureau of Immigration in the U.S.? Is it the U.S. Congress, or is it the Office of the President? What is the process here? You know, I'm asking from somebody who's the outsiders,
Well,
not familiar with how is this going to move forward.
It would be the State Department.
That you're
But
gonna
of
lobby
course, the
to.
nod of approval comes from the White House.
Sure.
And so that's where it is. But that's why I'm hoping that what we're doing today, that the State Department will take notice and
Okay.
maybe pass on the word. What do you think, Mr. President? We heard this going on that the Guam wants this visa waiver, and you know, it's just it maybe passes that way the White House, but maybe Trump won't see this, but the
Right.
State Department will see it. And then they will bring the issue to the White House and ask what his opinion would be
Correct.
on the matter. And then if we do a follow-up with that, they already know the issue. And so the State Department is where this thing you can be included or
Yeah.
removed.
And
Right.
then, after approval, for instance, by the White House,
By the State
what is
Department,
by
yeah.
the sorry by the State Department? What's next? Can it be implemented right away?
Yes, we're gonna come over here and fly back the first group, maybe 3 planes in a row.
and make an
Wow.
official announcement.
Yep.
In time for the
Yep.
75th
We'll have
anniversary
United
celebration.
Airlines, Philippine
July,
Airlines,
right?
By July.
Cebu Airlines that are flying here. We'll tell them to all
Fill it
land here
up.
at the same time, and we'll fill up the 3 planes and bring everybody,
What's
the
it gonna
first
go
group
for
of
you?
people to come to Guam and really let it go with a big bang.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
that's how intensive and how great this achievement would be.
And you think it's possible happening within this year, before the end of this year?
You know what? Knowing what the governor wants me to do, that's why I'm here again for the 3rd time. And I
third
just want to
time.
thank publicly, you know, the 2 individuals that helped make this thing happen. Actually, there's more than 2 individuals. But the Secretary of Filipinos Overseas Commission, Francisco Nick Acosta, a businessman here who owns Blackwater, Dioseldo C. And even this, you know, his group, Solomon Koo and Sam Koo, these people are the ones that are putting us together with the right people. And I hope that it really becomes successful, because we're not going to stop. And they're always monitoring what's the next step. They would call me, come now, because we can meet these people here in the Philippines. So in a moment's notice, I don't have to go on a government paid trip. I just get on my own and come over here and don't miss the opportunity.
Right.
So that's what happened on this trip too. And Ms. Ovalis was with us, and she's you know, a member of the board of the Guam Economic Development Authority. And there's one thing also that Guam has that nobody else in the United States has. It's called rebating federal U.S. taxes.
Okay.
We're the only ones that can do that. So what we're doing is that when you want to build a hotel, for example, we can rebate the real estate taxes. We can rebate up to 75% of your income, of your corporate income. Those are the things that we have. So we market that thing as well. So anybody here that wants to build a hotel, guarantee you we can rebate 75% of your profits to you.
That's very interesting.
Federal.
That's it.
We're the only ones in the United States that has that, and the Treasury Department, you know, can't do anything about it because it's a federal law.
Right. Now, you have to educate now our Philippine audience, because they don't understand what a territory means. What's the difference between a territory, which Guam is, and a state? And if I understand correctly, your neighboring islands like Saipan is under a different
No,
category.
no.
So how?
It's a different name.
Yeah. So maybe give us a
Okay.
little bit of a political lesson here.
And usually, when the United States was being founded, you first become a territory of the United States, but they consider it an incorporated territory, where you become a territory first, then you apply for statehood. And the last one that came in was Alaska. Hawaii was before that.
Right.
Hawaii was the last one. And so with Guam, it's called Territory of Guam. Saipan is called the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas. Puerto Rico is another name. American Samoa is another name. But in essence, we're all own lock and stock about as a territory.
Territory.
Right.
We
Yes.
are given a representation in the United States Congress,
Right.
one seat for all the different territories, although we cannot vote on the floor, but we hold rank in committee. Our delegate now, Mike St. Nicholas, first, he just got elected, but can you imagine he walked in there and he became a member of the Financial Services Committee and became vice chairman under Maxine Waters. Now, that's unprecedented. So with what we're moving forward, we've got this man now monitoring everything in the committee for us to improve our stance in getting SSI, for example, for every program that the United States has. The difference is that we cannot vote for President of the United States because the Constitution of the United States gives that right to states. It's called the Electoral College. So the people don't really vote popularly for a president. They cast their votes for electors in their state, and then the electors go and cast their vote for whoever they chose. So that one we don't have. But that's it. Otherwise, we're like a state. They won't give us statehood because they won't give us 2 senators, believe me.
No.
But the best thing to do is just to find out how Guam can have a meaningful participation in the way that the laws are made in the United States that govern our lives. In other words, we're not saying that one size fits all. There may be some laws that's good for the 50 states, but bad for us out here in the Pacific. So when I was governor, I came with the idea that Guam is America in Asia, and we have to be able to work that in. We're closer to China, Philippines than we are to Hawaii, our closest U.S. neighbor. So we have to be treated that way. National, U.S., international in flavor. And so that's what we are selling ourselves to, and to use us as a stepping stone towards the United States. And we did all that by putting all the fiber optics into Guam. There are more fiber optics coming in to Guam and going out than any place per capita in the world. So we can use that in financial services as well. So we're looking at Guam being America in Asia, and America is going to look at us as a contributor into the national economy instead of just people going like that asking for pera.
Sure. And what's
And-
what's the political landscape in Guam? I mean, is there a sense that you want to be more than a territory, that you want to be a state?
Yeah, we haven't,
Because sometimes, the Filipinos reminisce about our ties with the U.S., and there's always someone who suggests that,
States.
of course, it's out of left field sometimes.
yeah. Well, we missed that boat, I think. I think we
yeah.
missed that boat 1950 when they gave
Yeah.
us United States citizenship. They
Yeah.
gave us U.S. citizenship by federal law, gave us our self-government, right to self-government. And once you did that, we can never negotiate anymore with your own government for any other status.
I see.
Although we have never actually taken a vote of where we want to be. Right now, if you ask people out there to take a vote, they'll just say status quo or
Okay.
or just a statehood, which we can never get, but they'll rather just stay with the United States. They don't want to lose their U.S. passport, believe me.
It's interesting. We were talking earlier that you have Philippine roots. Your great-grandfather,
Yes.
I believe, was born.
Was born in
was
Binondo.
born in Binondo. And would you care to tell us a little bit more about that
Do you
story?
have a little bit of Chinese blood in you?
Possible.
When he gets mad, huh?
But
When he gets mad?
no, my great-great-grandfather, Vicente, came here as a commissioner of war for the Spanish.
I
Had
see.
my great-grandfather here, born in Binondo, and he also gave me into the military of Spanish. And he fought in the Battle of Fort Santiago.
Oh.
And then shortly thereafter, his wife died. I don't know if it was from the fight there or what happened, but then he was transferred to Guam and the Marianas. So he became acting governor of Guam and found my great-grandmother and had my grandfather there. But so I've already found my roots in Spain.
I
And,
see.
and now I'm working to find my
Here.
connections here.
In Binondo.
And so, everywhere in the
Everywhere,
Philippines.
everywhere there's a Gutierrez. Yeah.
So that's why,
Gutierrez,
yeah.
Maraming Gutierrez.
I was going to say, Governor, obviously the Philippine community has a special place in your heart, and now you've said that your roots are partly from the Philippines. What will this mean to you personally, when this all happens, that the Filipino gets visa-free entry to Guam.
You know, I was growing up, I was born before the war. I was a prisoner of war.
Wow.
And I grew up in an era where we had our own development on our island. But in 1946, 45, 46, there were only 22,000 Chamorros on Guam. But they sent in, the military brought in 23,000 Filipinos to rebuild our island. And a lot of those people, they put them in a camp, like a workforce camp. So they get tired of that. They go out and they walk around the community. 4 of them came to my father's house and our house, and they lived with us. And so I was pretty much raised up by a man named Bing Galard from Paranaque. And he taught me how to write and all this. So there's a special place in my heart. I was raised by a Filipino man growing up. There was 11 of us in the family.
Till what age?
Until he stayed there with us. So I was learning until I went to school, but I was the first best writer in school because he taught me already. And also he was an artist. He was everything. And so I kind of looked up to this man that did this. And as a matter of fact, when he died, my wife and I brought him back to here and gave him to the family. They had some family here in Paranaque. And they had 1 week of mahjong outside.
He really knows us.
Mr. Arroyo, you also have
Spanish blood.
Filipino
and-
roots.
and
You were saying, but
Filipinos.
I regret to say the wrong side is the prominent Arroyos. You're up from the north. The typical Arroyos that we know are from our Ilonggos, but
Longos, yes. I get the question all the time, of course, right away. Are you
related to the former
I
president?
said, give me to the front of the line in Shumart, then no problem. That's my auntie, But yes, now I think I understand now. It's a different
branch.
different branch. But at one point, I even caught myself saying I'm from Zimbabwe, but really supposed to be Zambales.
You know it started with a Z.
So,
Close enough.
but like I said earlier, I'm very interested to know my roots, and maybe one day I understand it's about 4 hours to get to Zambales.
No. 2 hours.
Two,
Hour and a
okay.
half.
Well, depends.
2 hours.
Everything feels like 4 hours these days. So
Depending on where in Zambales you're going.
Okay, so one day, yes, I will head
Yeah.
out there. And my grandfather is,
Right.
yeah, he made Guam some, so
Brigido.
Right.
Brihidu, and I'm the third. So
Right. So I suppose, this arrangement, if it pushes through, will go both ways, right? I mean, it's already, there's also already visa-free entry for U.S. citizens.
And you
but
have thousands coming here from Guam.
Right.
Medical, they're here.
Right.
We have a medical referral office here to take care of our people as they come in. When I was governor, I opened up a big medical referral office. We meet him at the plane, take him, put him in hotels, because this is really, that's another thing that she and I were talking about, but we don't want to say it, about insurance.
Yes, eventually.
And using the medical insurance from
Yes.
Filipinos here to offer to Guam.
Wow.
A lot of Filipino doctors and nurses are already working and living in Guam.
80%.
absolutely.
So
And we have a
That's
former
right.
colleague who's, is it Guam or
who's that?
a former layout artist?
Oh, yeah.
Deposa.
I think she's in Saipan.
Saipan.
Yeah.
So
But
They're actually the best writers.
is there a name?
The
Yung
best
mga import
writer?
natin sa Saipan.
Monette
mga
de
Filipino
Boza, she's
writers
actually
natin.
but no, she's actually
Mostly
moved to
Filipino.
mainland
They're
now.
Ah,
She's now in the
okay.
mainland, but
Mga
she
bata, no,
started out in
Alright.
Saipan.
They're not intimidated by any political.
But I
Ang
think
gagaling ng mga writers.
Having heard from them, how much value they put on the Filipino, I think for everybody that's watching us today, I think Guam is a place where the Filipino traveler, can go and feel that dignity as a Filipino. I mean, there are often many places around the world that you kind of feel not that
Still a
important,
stranger,
but with so many doctors there and with so many Filipinos
yeah.
contributing to the development of Guam, I think you can go there with your head held high on American soil and really just enjoy a taste of
Well, it's
the
interesting.
state. So.
This morning, I was monitoring the news from Korea because Neri was there. I heard the South Korean ambassador to Manila saying that he'll be lobbying also for visa-free entry to Korea.
Korea.
So
Yeah, because you guys are required.
Maybe that's the
of
first
visa.
step to us.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
So that we all tie
Yeah.
up.
But
tying up
you know,
from the president's
I think
office,
more.
right?
I think we're going to trump that news tomorrow.
Yeah, because
Visa
Guam,
free entry to
Guam's a player.
It's here in Guam.
Thank you, Dante, yes.
That's gonna be good, yeah.
And I think that'll make a lot more than,
Yeah.
you know, whatever we say here. But
Yeah.
it's that you speak for the Filipino people.
Well, I'm not sure, but what's your timetable here? I mean, people are going to be
Probably
wondering.
excited now.
When are you planning to
I can
make
give you-
representation to the U.S. State Department?
Well, first of all, I'm going to monitor after tomorrow just what they picked up, and I will also ask.
Well, I
my
guarantee you
delegate-
page one tomorrow.
Oh, I see.
So-
My yabang na niya.
Right. Yeah. So as we
That's
speak,
gonna-
your
That's gonna be a
the
lot of
roundtable
support
is going to
and
be
pleasure.
available
so.
on
Even
our
the
on our
local
website.
chamber,
Yeah.
You go
And
to the
then,
local chamber, your chamber, the
So
American
you're
Chamber of
you're
Commerce.
you're you're
My
going to get a fair
gosh,
amount
this
of
is sure-
push from us.
But you know, your
the
voice,
private
and,
nonprofit NGOs could support.
and
This is a
assessing what we
win-win
are
situation.
saying, and sort of,
Yeah, I'm only on the small business part. Ito
helping
talaga.
boost that,
Really
I
doesn't
think is
mention the
going to make a lot of
qualifying
difference in the
certificate, which
timetable.
gives you so
It is
many
going to
years
make a
of
lot
free
of difference
taxes,
in,
as long as you hire local
I
people.
monitor this
That's
now
what I'm reminding you.
and see just how
QC is
quickly
big
our
thing.
movement
Imagine
is
putting
all the
your
way up to
investment, putting up a
our
hotel,
national
then
government.
you're gonna
And
have to
I
pay
would have our
taxes for
delegate
20,
monitor
25 years.
to what
You
extent
hire people.
your
That's where the taxes are-
State
are
Department from
derived,
here
right?
move this issue up
But
over
it
the
gives
next
you
few days.
Well, you know,
Lest we forget and be accused of not asking this question, sometimes it just makes us wonder, why are there so few people in your capital, Hagatna? You know, compared with the other cities, and this is supposed to be the seat of your government.
If you-
Why are there only about more than 1,000 residents there?
As a matter of fact, you know, Guam, Aganya
Hagatna,
was
oh sorry,
leveled
yeah.
before the invasion in July 21st, 1944, when the Marines came in and the Army came in. They leveled everything. They knocked, you know, they just bombed it so that there won't be anybody alive by the time they come in to minimize their losses. And then they started out, the federal government started out doing a plat plan and a grid to put the capital back in shape. But they did it in such a way where you had fractional lots that it didn't make sense. But right now we have, the governor also put a very, very strong emphasis on the Agana, we call it Agana, but it's the Agana restoration of the historic Guam, so that we're going to move everybody back to Agana. And
Oh,
build
so
up.
it's just a deliberate effort on the government's part now to just move people away while the reconstruction is going
That's
on.
what happened. But now she's trying to bring it back, and we're doing. We have a complete office and commission now in historical preservation of Agatna.
I
Bring it
see.
back
Okay.
to that state and put our capital there. Our capital's even outside Agatna. And
What about the commercial and financial district? Is it also in that area?
No.
It's
They're
elsewhere.
They moved up there where there was open land at that particular time where the
I
beaches
see.
were. But right now, we're looking at what we can do to be able to bring at least some limited form of tourism, hotels by the marina, and make it work and plan it well. So that's what we're doing right now.
So I suppose your tourism plan would include city tours and guiding the tourists from the Philippines, for example, on a little history of why that
They
happened in
have.
Agatna.
You know, that we do make that, because right there, if you walk into that tourist part of Agatna, you see all the Japanese caves on the side of the hill.
Oh, wow.
That's where they said, look at, this is where they were,
tunnels, yeah.
and that's why we were bombarded out of hell from because they were there.
All right,
So
all right.
that's the tour is there. That's what caused Agana to be forgotten.
Well, Governor Gutierrez, very interesting
Yeah.
discussion. We wish you all the best, and for all it's worth, I think I speak for Manila Times when I say that I wish you luck, and we're behind you in this initiative. Thank you, and good luck.
Yes.
All right,
Thank you,
Mr.
Dr.
Arroyo.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank
so
you.
much.
It's been a wonderful hour.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Salamat mga kaibigan.
Wow.